Hello, this is Bruce Decker. I'm a senior solutions consultant with Zumasys, and the name of this presentation is Succession Planning for MultiValue Applications. So what we're going to cover in this session is to define what is succession planning. We're going to assess our situation. We're going to talk about what management is worried about. We're going to talk a bit about our options. What's the most practical path going forward? And then how do we get there? So we're going to define succession planning as a process for identifying and developing new leaders who can replace old leaders when they leave, retire, or die. Succession planning increases the availability of experienced and capable of employees that are prepared to assume those roles as they become available. This is something that's generally done across the business, not just in IT, but we're going to talk specifically about how that applies to our legacy multi-value applications. So we're going to talk about assessing our situation. We have a powerful and rich application. We basically call that the supercar in this little presentation. It consists of custom business rules that serve the business very well. It has a very low total cost of ownership, and there's a brain trust that built much of it over many years. And typically that brain trust may be looking towards retirement now. So management has some worries related to that. And the first one is, what happens when we lose our brain trust? And so when we lose our brain trust, as with any key person, process, customer, vendor, system, we have to have a succession plan, and we'll talk about how that's done. The second concern is whether they're going to be able to find PIC programmers, because traditionally that's what you've had to do, go out and find PIC programmers to manage a PIC-based system. And the truth is they're out there, but we ask, why should you limit yourself to just PIC programmers? And we're going to argue that if you package your PIC applications correctly, your existing apps can be easily understood by programmers that don't necessarily have extensive PIC background, and we're going to show you how to do that. The next concern is, even if we could find PIC programmers, can they learn our system? And our answer here is yes. JBase and OpenQM, which are our multi-value technologies, provide all of the commands and features that will make existing PIC programmers happy and productive. And the tools themselves will help them sort out the applications that have been built up over years and get them organized again. The next concern that management would have is new programmers don't want to program in PIC. And the actual answer to that is that new programmers dislike the simple, primitive nature of traditional PIC basic. But what we've done at Zumasys with our JBase and OpenQM products is we've added modern constructs that new programmers like, such as objects, classes, methods, and tools for analyzing, monitoring, and debugging applications. So when we package our traditional applications this way, your system becomes not that different than other modern systems that new programmers know and like. So we become a lot more like the outside world when we're on JBase and OpenQM. The next concern management has is, will the system keep up with our business needs? And so there's nothing inherently wrong with these applications or with the underlying technology. If we add these modern constructs, we're able to achieve the modern interfaces and interoperability that modern systems are looking for. And for an example here, 41 of the 50 largest banks in the world actually run JBase. It's a very capable platform, and there's nothing inherently wrong with applications that are written around a multi-value basic paradigm. We'll show you a bit about how that's done. And then the next concern management we'll have is, wouldn't we be better off spending large dollars on the acquisition and maintenance of canned software and just give up our flexibility and our low total cost of ownership is just the cost of doing business? And our response to that would be, giving up control can be a huge ask for a business. You've got systems that have been customized over decades and do exactly what you need. And if the concern is whether it will go the distance and whether it can be modernized, we think we have an approach that'll deliver that for a fraction of the cost of outright system replacement. So in a perfect world, succession is going to look something like this. We're going to hire or promote a new young, bright kid that's coming up in the ranks. We're going to have the current brain trust train them. Over time, these new young, bright kids are going to become the brain trust. They're going to add their bit to the solution, and then we're going to lather, rinse, and repeat that process, just like we would in any other division of our company. So what stands in our way with multi-value applications? And the answer, in my opinion, is entropy. And we're going to define entropy to mean a lack of order or predictability, or a gradual decline into disorder. So what we have is lots of customizations that have been made to our applications over the years. And that's led to some dead or obsolete code that's no longer in use, which is normal. In other words, we have some clutter and we need to do some housekeeping. We've also been tempted to make quick fixes to our application over the years into our code base. And this is primarily due to the fact that we're all running really fast trying to stay up with the business, and we may not have afforded our programmers the opportunity to really implement elegant solutions to some of our business challenges. They've just kind of been put in as quick fixes, and that's led to some degree of entropy. The clutter and complexity of those applications and those fixes make it more difficult for the next generation to rapidly understand and embrace the code. And so you can see the image that I have off there to the right, and the way I kind of picture it is it's kind of like this wonderful Jenga stack that we've built up over a number of years. And at some point, people kind of look at it and they're afraid to actually pull that next piece out, take out a section of code that they know doesn't work anymore, because they're fearful that it might just topple the whole deck. This isn't unique to multi-value applications. This is the general nature of systems, and everybody, no matter what language or framework or whatever it is that you're working on, they have to deal with these same situations. The difference is that in most environments, there's good tools that actually help programmers understand whether that piece of dead code could be pulled out or not. And what we've done in our systems now in JBase and OpenQM is we've added those capabilities that allow programmers with confidence to do their housekeeping. So what stands in our way with multi-value applications from a technology standpoint? Well, the first thing is a language barrier. The younger next generation crowd expects certain constructs in their programming languages. And traditional multi-value languages like traditional Pick Basic do not support these constructs. So the kids coming out of school have been taught object-oriented programming, and they're used to being able to have at their disposal things like objects and classes and methods. And when they enter a realm where the language that they're being asked to adopt doesn't have those constructs, they feel like they've basically lost their right arm. The way that they're used to organizing their thoughts and building solutions, it's simply not there. And so we knew in order for the younger developers to be able to feel comfortable taking over these applications, we were going to have to make them comfortable in the language. Also, young developers work in modern languages such as JavaScript, C#, Python, and you may have heard of some others. And they want to be able to use these languages when it's appropriate. There's a tooling barrier, and young developers want to be able to use tooling familiar to them, including integrated development environments, application frameworks, and other things that they have been trained on in school. And traditionally, multi-value systems haven't been very friendly to using modern common tools. The next thing that young developers tend to do is the internet's out there and programmers exchange ideas and code segments and solutions to problems that are quite common. And young developers know where to find those, and they can very quickly go out onto the internet, find these resources, grab them, and integrate them right into their applications. And this is a practice that they feel they can't readily use when they move into a multi-value system. We've got some solutions for that as well. So the good news is that we've addressed these issues. So the first thing related to entropy of our existing applications is that we can now use tools, common tools, to find and remove entropy and restore good housekeeping to our code base. So there's a separate presentation which I invite you to watch if this is a topic of interest, called Untangling Legacy Code. And in it, we introduce you to some of the concepts at a high level of how you can use the tooling that we've built into our products like JBase that would allow a new programmer or an existing programmer to get a better handle on the status of the code base and how to clean it up. The second bit of good news is regarding the language barrier. And we can now use language constructs such as objects, classes, and methods. We've actually added that into traditional multi-value programming languages. So now, rather than looking at Pick Basic as something old that they don't really want to put their arms around, they see things that are very familiar and very similar to what they've been trained on in school. We can now call into our multi-value environment from other languages. So if Pick Basic isn't the answer, it might be one of the other languages that they're familiar with. And because of the way that JBase and OpenQM are architected, we can actually call into JBase or OpenQM from other languages, common languages, or we can call out of our environment, JBase, into other languages. And this allows a whole different approach to application development, which can really make new developers feel like they're in a comfortable place. And with JBase in particular, we can even mix languages. So a programmer can be running along in some legacy Pick code, and they can instantly shift right into C or some other language right within the same code set. So this can make a programmer extremely comfortable in short order that they're going to be able to solve a business problem. The next bit of good news is regarding the tooling barrier. And so what we've done is we've allowed we've allowed tools, common tools, to actually call into multi-value data and multi-value programming from any language. So if they want to use Visual Studio set of programming tools, they can call from it directly into JBase programming and into JBase or OpenQM data. So that's one thing. We have also added RESTful services, which is sort of the common and modern and beloved approach that programmers use for calling into back-end server-side data and back-end server-side programming. You may have heard the term microservices, and that we've added into the multi-value environment. So when your apps are running on JBase or OpenQM, you can actually work in a different language, even a different IDE, and you can call directly into legacy PIC programming and use it directly. We can work with any language or any IDE. We can work in mixed mode, where we may have some traditional character-based older applications running right alongside of new graphical or web-based applications. Probably one of the other real important benefits to the approach is that there's no big bang cutover. There's no day when you're going to throw the switch over to the new system and just hope everything works. We can do that, but we can also take an incremental approach where you can take functions bit by bit and begin to move those over, sitting side by side with your traditional legacy code, and you can hit the things that are going to give you the biggest bang for the buck, the best value. And you can begin to transition your application a piece at a time rather than having to do it all at once. This approach itself virtually eliminates the risk of moving into a modern realm. And it keeps your cost much lower than an outright system replacement. The moves are going to be small and incremental, and you can manage them in a low-risk way. The next bit of good news is regarding the young developers' propensity for wanting to reach out onto the internet and grab pre-built solutions and just use them, is that we have the ability to do that because we can run in mixed mode language. We can actually allow a programmer to go out and grab an open source solution written perhaps not even in PIC Basic, and it usually isn't, and actually integrate that and use that directly within their MultiValue applications. There's a separate presentation given by my colleague Peter Folson called either Make Basic Great Again or Making Basic Great Again, and you can look for that presentation, and he'll go into some examples of how that's actually achieved. So the next thing we'll talk about is choosing our successor. Choosing the right person to hand the baton to from your current brain trust can be frustrating, but there are certain approaches that we can take which can greatly increase our likelihood of success. So the first thing, obviously, is don't choose a job hopper looking to bounce into your organization and then straight out to Silicon Valley to write video games. What I recommend, and this is based on traveling around the country and talking to various businesses that have accomplished this succession plan successfully, is they're not looking for necessarily the top IT graduate or the best computer geek. They're looking for someone with a sound business mind with some technical savvy. So it's very important that you not put tech savvy before business mind. And we'll go into a little bit of that later on in the presentation. I think finding someone who has a genuine interest in your business, likes business and likes the things that you do and likes the challenges that are presented by your business. A person who loves process and loves process improvement and takes pride in doing that. As a bonus, having someone with roots in your community would be great, and we've seen a lot of success within our customer base where they've actually grabbed someone, let's say, off their warehouse floor that had a sound business mind and tech savvy and actually brought them up through the IT ranks. In a couple cases, they've gone all the way to vice president or president level because they were just good, sharp people who understood process and could learn technology. But in a separate example, finding people who have roots in the community would be people who perhaps aren't young 20-somethings, but maybe around 30 and maybe have a family and are tied to the community and are looking for a good, stable company to provide for their family. And this can be an important element in finding the right person who's going to be right for this position. And a person who's loyal. And how you assess loyalty traits is done in a variety of ways. This could be someone internal that you grow up and move into the IT ranks. And the thing that we usually notice if we look at the bullets above is that these are probably attributes that you'll find in your current brain trust, and they may have come up the same way. One of our customers, Cook Medical, it's a multi-billion-dollar medical device manufacturer. Thousands of worldwide users, and they're actually using our JBase MultiValue database platform to run their manufacturing processes. They found it was difficult keeping new talent. They're based in Bloomington, Indiana, where Indiana University is, and trying to find those top grads that would come out of computer science and bring them into a manufacturing company. As exciting as the work that Cook does, they were bouncing out of Cook and right over to California for startups, looking for a higher paycheck. And while I think the Cook story is just phenomenal, providing life-saving medical devices and being involved in that whole process, for a lot of top IT grads, that's not sexy enough. They want to go out and write video games and things like that. So whatever the reasons, it was difficult trying to find that talent, bring them in, and keep them for the long haul. So Cook's response was a bit different. They kind of rethought this and went outside the box and said, hey, we can find plenty of quality IT talent out of the local community college system. And coincidentally, right next to the Cook campus was a community college called Ivy Tech. The people who typically go to a community college rather than a university are going to be those that are perhaps embarking on second careers or are looking for that leg up, and they're grateful for a job, and they'd love to work for Cook, and you'll find some great talent there. So Cook actually worked with the local community college, and they developed a JBase programming curriculum. And they now fill positions easily with talented, dedicated IT professionals and a very low turnover rate. So choose wisely. So what actions can you actually take? Well, choose the right successor, select the right technologies, give that successor the environment that they need to succeed and thrive, mitigate the risk, but advance in a bold and sensible and progressive manner. So if we look at our decisions here, we've got basically three common paths that a company will look at. On the left, do nothing and hope, and just kick it down the road. Relax and move ahead, or replace it all. So if we look at the do nothing and hope option, there's no immediate cost, obviously. It delays the inevitable, which is something is going to have to be done at some point. And while we're waiting, while that delay is occurring, maybe something better and newer will come along while we're waiting. Or you might say, maybe we'll just sell the whole company and it becomes someone else's problem to solve. So these are all things that I'm sure are going through management's mind. On the replace it all option, without a succession plan and an understanding of how you could achieve that, it sometimes seems like that's the only option available. We can find successors excited and interested in maintaining our current application. We can, if we can find people that are comfortable, or if we can feel comfortable that we can keep up with the business demands and not fall behind, that would be another thing that would keep us on platform. That would cause us to think that we need to move off platform. So also, unless we can feel comfortable that this system can connect to the world of evolving tech, that might be another reason why we feel we need to jump out of this current application set. And unless we can preserve our apps with a lower total cost of ownership than replacement, it might be an option that we're going to look at strongly. So if we look at the replace it all option, This is what I call getting on the technology merry-go-round. And the pitch is that you're going to hear is, this tech is new, you're going to miss the boat, this will be the last system you'll ever need to purchase, I promise. And if you buy it, all your wildest dreams will come true. The reality looks a little bit different. The truth is, technology changes in a pretty massive way about every 5 years. And so if you have looked at technology, let's say over the last decade, you'll probably remember some of these mantras that were given by those who were arguing you had to change your technology. And the first one is, you got to be client server. And if you go back a bit over a decade ago, that was sort of the rage. And people spent massive amounts of money on PCs and PC-based software and server farms, and just spent a lot of money. And those people are being asked to now change it all again. Or you got to be SQL. If you're not SQL, you're not anything. And that was the mantra, I'd say, up until about 4 years ago. But the thing to remember here is that those who made those changes are now being asked to change again. And what other technology, other than the one you're currently running, has proven its longevity and relevance to the business? So how about asking questions like, what does this bring to my bottom line? What are the real risks of replacing or keeping? And just to kind of look over to Warren there on the right, who says it's not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. So if we really look at business from what is the real benefit for making these changes and keep those bullets in mind, it can really help keep us in perspective. There's nothing wrong with new technology. We use a lot of new technology, but there's an appropriate place for a continuation of legacy and an appropriate place for introduction of new technology. We just need to keep it all in context. So relax and move ahead. Keep what works. Keep the apps that work and get rid of the ones that don't. Keep the data that works. Change and update that data as necessary to support the business. And processes. If processes need to change, great, change them. And if they don't, we can keep those processes in place. They're proven, they're working. So fix what's needed. Create a succession plan. Find new talent. Put the right technology in place. And use new apps where it's necessary, with new user interfaces where it's necessary, and new features where it's necessary. So tackling the technology gap, we really need to make sure that the next generation of developers are comfortable with their coding style, comfortable with the tooling, comfortable with the languages that they get to use, and comfortable with the frameworks that they're able to use. How do we make existing developers comfortable? Make sure that the packaging that we put in place still allows them to use familiar commands, allows them to run existing code without having to rewrite the entire thing, that they're able to reuse all the existing data without having to transform it or change it. And let them know that they're going to be able to develop code the same way they have for the last X years and no forced change. So we're going to enable new programming paradigms, but we're not going to force a change to the programming paradigm. And this will make your existing PIC developers, your brain trust, feel comfortable in participating in this handoff process. Oh, and as a side benefit, we'll make it faster and more reliable. And not too many people can argue with those goals. In addition, because we're going to be making those applications, we're going to be placing them in a packaging that is native, it's going to be much easier to administer using common administrative techniques and tools. So how are we going to make new developers comfortable? We're going to allow new developers to use the tools and frameworks and languages they like. We're going to give them a comfortable way to embrace legacy code without being fearful of it. We're going to help them understand and untangle it, do some housekeeping. And we're going to allow them to refactor legacy code without throwing it away and be able to use conventions that they're accustomed to, like classes, methods, objects, and RESTful services. So we're basically going to turn your existing system into a new form that new developers recognize and are comfortable with. And that's going to make them much happier about the prospect of taking the baton from the current brain trust. How are we going to make the business owners comfortable? Well, the first thing that usually makes them interested and smiling is that we can do this for a fraction of the cost of total system replacement. We'll provide them with even a lower total cost of ownership because our platforms are that much more efficient and more cost effective to maintain. We're going to show them a very low cost to migrate. We are so compatible with the existing legacy environment that the project to move to this proper packaging is a fraction of what it would take, a tiny fraction of what it would take to move and do a wholesale system replacement. It's not disruptive to the business. There's no 0 day where we're going to switch over to a new system and we just cross our fingers and hope. Any of the incremental moves that we make can be done in small moves with very low risk. We're going to keep the competitive advantage that only custom coding can provide. We're going to be able to attract quality new developers that won't shun your offer of employment because they perceive you're running on old technology. And we're going to allow you to stay off the 5-year technology replacement merry-go-round. We're going to integrate with the latest tech through open source and commercial offerings. And we're basically providing a smart, practical, economical, modern technology to evolve your business. So the handoff. We're going to provide a comfortable environment for new developers, at the same time a comfortable, familiar environment for senior developers. We're going to promote knowledge transfer and collaboration. And it's amazing when I go visit customers that have employed this approach with our JBase and OpenQM approach to see the brain trust, the senior developers working hand in hand with the young developers showing the senior developers how to use modern programming techniques, and the young developers gaining an appreciation for what this legacy code can actually deliver for the business. It's really a wonderful thing to watch in practice. We're going to provide tools so that these groups can work together and probably take care of some long overdue cleanup and ways of managing their code. We don't force radical changes. You can transition at a pace that's comfortable for all the staff. And so how do we get there as our final part? Fears, technology, hiring, and empowerment. Fears, we need to translate management's fears into real business terms. So rather than hysterically saying we can't find pick programmers, we're going to ask questions like, what is the risk to the business when so-and-so retires? And using the approaches that we've shown in this presentation and that have been proven in the field by our customers, we're going to be able to separate the rational fears from the irrational fears. Technology, we need to be fully aware of technologies like JBase, OpenQM, and others. We need to understand how these technologies can address the fears and concerns of management. We need to understand how these technologies can give control and excite new developers. We need to look at how these technologies can give a path to new technology without risk and expense, while giving you a sensible, non-disruptive path to the future. When we talk about hiring, We want to be realistic with our goals. We want to choose the right people. Remember, business savvy or business smart first, then tech savvy second. Look for community roots and traits of loyalty. Look for gems within your organization. Look for a long-term relationship with this person or people. And then we need to empower that group. Empower the team. Give them the tech and tools that make them comfortable. So in summary, identify and address fears and concerns about existing systems. Don't base decisions on unfounded fears and sales hype. Assess what you have. It's actually pretty darn good. Provide modern technology that's attractive to new hires. Hire business smart, tech savvy second, with an interest in your business. Encourage collaboration between existing and new hires to facilitate. And lather, rinse, and repeat. If you have any questions about this presentation, I'm more than happy to take your calls or your emails, and I'll be happy to respond. I can also provide and work with you to create custom versions of this presentation for your management. My name is Bruce Decker. Give me a call.